welcome everybody. We're going to just crack on and with this next session, which I'm most excited about because this is about advances in viral diagnostics, and you all have to just be a bit quiet. My goodness. I don't really need a microphone, but anyway, yeah. So we are very delighted to just relax and enjoy chairing one session. Having been
previous experience.
Yeah. So we're just going to crack on and welcome our keynote speaker that's going to go through clinical viral metagenomics and spillover detection using high throughput sequencing. So welcome Professor Marc Elliott from France, from the Institut Pasteur, the heart of microbiology, and well, Paris is a lovely place.
And Marc Elliott in the US maybe, but Eloi in France. So I'm working at, thank you very much, thank you for your invitation and presentation. So I'm working at Institut Pasteur, Paris, downtown. And I've been working with next-gen sequencing for more or less 10 years. And I would like to share with you the pipeline we are using, the characteristics, and some success and also some failures to try to give you a fair overview of what this kind of technique is able to do for you. First, as a brief introduction, I would like to remind you that in the history of virology, viruses have been evidenced by isolation on cell culture, in cell culture or in animals. Then came a second wave discovery with molecular techniques and discovery of hepatitis E, for example, hepatitis C. Now, clearly, PCR has become the standard for the diagnostic of viruses. Other molecular techniques have been developed with a broader range of detections. They can be based on specific amplification, meaning that you need more or less to know what you are looking for before designing or before running the test. And that's not the topic of my talk. The topic of my talk is all this technique, which is agnostic, which does not use any specific amplification. When it needs amplification, it is based on a random amplification, and it is known currently as clinical metagenomics. So this is the outline of my talk. First, the description of the pipeline, then analytical sensitivity and breadth of detection. I think it's an important point because when we find negative results, and we find often negative results, it's important to have information regarding the negative predictive value of the results. Indeed, I will show you some clinical cases, and I will give you a brief overview of what we are doing currently regarding looking for viruses able to spill over from animal reservoir to humans. So basically, this kind of technique is very simple. You have only to extract nucleic acids here, to do sequencing, to remove by bioET tools. It's optional, but human sequences, and then you compare the sequence with comprehensive databases. This is often presented as a needle in the haystack. This is true, and you will see some examples. But sometimes you will get a huge number of reads, and in this situation, indeed, the diagnostic is very easy. So this is the difference with PCR. PCR, you are amplifying a small sequence, short amplicon, generally speaking, designed in very conserved regions. This means specific amplification. This can be resolved by NGS to get access to low minority species or species with a low frequency. And this is not what I am talking. I am talking about whole genome next-gen sequencing. So practically, what we are doing is summarized on this slide. When we have to test biological fluids like urine, like indeed plasma, in fact, we consider that we are looking for DNA or RNA genome associated within a capsid, within a shell, meaning protected against the action, for example, of nucleases. So I am here speaking about viruses, but in fact we are looking also for bacteria and fungi, and focusing my talk today on viruses. So what we do is to make an hydrolysis of these free nucleic acids here, And the rationale is the following. In fact, when we do next generation sequencing, the reads to generate are shared between all the targets that are in the sample. And the sensitivity of the test relies on the ratio between the target and the background. So it's a way to increase the ratio target to background. So we make the hydrolysis, and we extract DNA and RNA, and we make cDNA with or without random amplification in function of the concentration of the nucleic acids. And regarding now biopsies, cells, plasma, blood cells, or biopsy, in fact, we consider that RNA is a surrogate for virus infectivity, and we extract RNA and we do basically RNA-seq. We do sequencing, so currently we are using exclusively the Illumina technology. You can use MiSeq, NextSeq, or HiSeq, depending on the workload, indeed. But we try to derive more or less 80 to 100 million reads per sample, as you will see that in some cases the target is really lowly represented. So the pipeline is here. So generally speaking, I know that this part of the talk is not very appreciated by most of the audience. I know that. But in fact, the main point is that we are working with proteins only. So the genome of viruses is very compact. Most of the genome is coding. So we are working with protein only. And this is also a way to identify distant proteins, because a part of our work is dedicated to the virus identification in mosquitoes and ticks. So we have very recently released a comprehensive database of viral proteins. This work has been done in collaboration with the laboratory of Arifa Khan at the FDA, who derived a comprehensive and curated nucleotide database. And we have derived the counterpart. In fact, we have derived two databases. The first one is a proteic database, which corresponds simply to the feature of the nucleotide database. And the second one here is a HMM profiles database, meaning that the proteins have been clusterized according to their similarity. And this opens for us the way to identify very distant proteins. For example, in mosquitoes and ticks, very often we find polymerase, capsid proteins, but for the envelope proteins, which are very distant, it's difficult to see them by blast analysis of proteins. So we are using this kind of database. So this database is now open source. You can upload them and use them. And this is a pipeline. First, we begin by a quality sorting of the reads. Then we do a blast analysis on this RVDB database. In case of any positive hit, we counter-check if there is no better hit in the non-redundant NCBI protein database here. And in case of positive hit, we counter-check once again the whole nucleotide NCBI database. So at the end, we get some results. So if it works, I will try to show you the typical output of such a pipeline. So this is a summary slide, but here, in principle, so the link does not work, indeed. It worked here. Once again, so no, I will use this slide. So this slide shows you the typical output. So we get here a table, an HTML table, where you can find the list of the different taxonomic assignation. You can see here the e-value, the probability of correct taxonomic assignation. You can see here the taxonomic distance here, meaning the comparison between the taxonomic assignation in the viral database and in the comprehensive database. If the difference is 0, this means that the viral taxonomic assignation is probably correct. If the distance is very large, this is evidence of a low robustness of this taxonomic assignation. We can get also indeed the percentage of identity here, and we can sort the results. We can generate a CRONA. We can click on any part of this pie and sub-select a range of viruses here, for example, and we can extract all the sequences. And with this kind of pipeline, we save a lot of time compared to the classical output of metagenomic pipeline. So I will now show you, give you some information regarding the sensitivity and the breadth of detection of the pipeline. First, validation regarding virus particles, so the fluidic part of the pipeline, the viromic part of the pipeline. We have first published several years ago in collaboration with NCBI and many other labs, comparison of attempt of the NCBI of the NIBSC, excuse me, not NCBI, NIBSC, so in UK, to derive the standard for NGS. It was a pool of 26 human viruses produced in cells, in eggs, or for clinical specimen. They have been diluted and pooled to give an equivalent CT value in principle, but no absolute quantification. And interestingly, 7 of the viruses were undetectable by qPCR. And in fact, you can see here the results of the different pipeline we have been using, and we compare. So first, you have here the different viruses that have been tested here, and the genomic structure. And here you have different pipelines, wet part, the way of constructing libraries, and you can see that the most performing is able to detect, if I remember well, 24 viruses. The PCR, so more viruses than the PCR, and the less efficient was able to detect 3 or 4 or 5 virus less. So the results depend also not only on the depth of sequencing, but on the wet part of the analysis. And the coverage also of the virus differs. This is a coverage for herpes virus type 3, depending on 4 techniques, and you can see clearly that the coverage also differs. And more recently, we have evaluated quantitatively the analytical sensitivity by using ATCC virus stock, which were well characterized according to the number of virus particles, the number of genome copies per virus particles. And you can see here 4 different viruses with different types of genomes. And the number, the value here are the horizontal, correspond to the horizontal genome coverage. So 3 does not mean 3 reads. And this means that we can detect something which is between 10 to the 3 to 10 to the 2 virus particle per ml, which is more or less the limit of detection of most PCR, in fact, without the need, indeed, to be targeted. The diagnostic sensitivity depends on analytical sensitivity, but also on the range of detection. And indeed, the range of detection is more difficult to evaluate. I can show you 2 examples. The first one regarding the range of detection is identification of viruses in arthropod vectors. Here you have, for example, samples, stick samples that have been taken at different parts of the world, and you can see the list of viruses of new viral species that can be found in ticks, and this demonstrates indeed that this kind of technology is able to detect viruses with a very large range of detection. More clinically pertinent, I'd like to show you here some situation where when NGS discover false negative results of PCR. In fact, this was a collaboration between the Institut Pasteur in Cambodia at Phnom Penh, and the idea was to explore acute pneumonia with the idea, indeed, to find new viruses. So the protocol was to take nasal swabs, to screen the nasal swabs with PCR. You have the list of PCR here. And the regions were those used in Western countries, exactly the same. And we did not find any new virus, in fact, but we have found different viruses that were supposed to be negative by PCR, but which were clearly positive. And you have here some example. Here you have an RSV, which was fully covered. Here you have parainfluenza virus, fully covered also. You have an enterovirus 68. You can see the coverage. And the best one was a Boca virus, in fact, and you can see that each nucleotide was sequenced more than 200,000 times, and the PCR was negative. And regarding now the validation of the detection of virus transcripts in infected cells, the other part of the pipeline, I can show you two types of proof of concepts. The first one corresponds to the infection kinetic of detection of the Borna virus, each non-cytopathic virus, in vero cells. And we have challenged ourselves by infected cells at a very low multiplicity of infection, 0.02 PFU per cell. And we have followed the infection by targeted techniques. Immunofluorescence, you can see that the result is positive at D2, and CC and more positive at D3. And regarding the RT-PCR, it becomes more or less positive above the background of the input virus at D2 also. So we decided to deep sequence D2 and D3. And you can see that at D2, we got more or less 50% coverage of the viral genome. The study was blind, indeed. And at D3, we covered the whole genome. And here you have a recent paper we have published regarding once again the analytical sensitivity of the RNA-seq pipeline. So we have chosen EBV persistently infected cells. We have chosen B95-8 cells. And we have diluted the cells into Ramos cells, which are EBV negative lymphoid cells. And we have compared PCR targeted to the DNA genome with RNA-seq. And you have here the result of the PCR that detected one infected cell in a background on 10 to the 5 non-infected cells. And the RNA-seq had exactly the same limit of detection. And the coverage was quite good, because this corresponds more or less to 2,000 base pairs, meaning more than enough to identify a virus. And the added value, I don't show you now, is that in the Ramos cell line, we have found a murine leukemia virus, fully replicative murine leukemia virus. And the Ramos cell line was supposed to be MULV negative, the cell line from ATCC. And we sourced the cells from EACC, and the cells from EACC were MULV negative and positive, and we confirmed by bioassays that the cells were infected. And indeed, the safety regarding the handling of the cells is not the same, will not be the same. So I will now show you some clinical cases, meaning patients with negative results with conventional testing. I will show you some results first regarding progressive dermatologic disease, and I will begin with this case of pediatric cases of pediatric cutaneous granuloma in the contact of PID. In fact, this type of granuloma is well known of dermatologists, and an infectious origin has long been suspected, and all tests generally as negative, including tests for intracellular bacteria. So we had access to different cases. The first one was a little girl of 10 years old, and we deep sequenced the granuloma tissue, and we have found a few reads. You can see a few reads and contigs corresponding to a very well-known virus, and the well-known virus was the rubella virus, and more specifically the vaccinal strain. So it was one case, and the second consecutive case was a boy of 15-year-old, and we got exactly the same kind of results. rubella virus vaccinal strain. And you can see here that we confirm by PCR. The PCR for the first case was positive, and it was positive also on a sample taken 4 years before. So the virus persisted 4 years. And for the second case, this was the skin, the granuloma. This was the skin taken 3 or 4 years before, and this was a healthy skin here, which was negative. And this is here the third case. We have explored only by PCR, and it was positive in the granuloma and negative in the healthy skin. These are the negative controls, and these are the demonstration of the expression of the rubella virus within the granuloma. So we have published this first series of cases, and we have completed the publication by another case with visceral granuloma. You can see the skin granuloma, but also in the spleen, the lungs, the liver, and in the bone. And you can see here that the expression of rubella antigens is much more evident. And since this corresponds to a different type of immune deficit, you have here a lot of ataxia telangiectasia, but other types of immune deficit also. And clinicians have published recently on this part of on this side of the Atlantic Ocean and in the US, a series of cases. In fact, the association between rubella virus vaccine strain and this kind of granuloma is very strong, close to 100%. This is an attempt to do a comparative pathology, in fact. And there is in horse dermatofibrosarcoma, which is named sarcoids, and which is very interesting because it is due to a bovine papillomavirus type 1 and 2. And if you read textbooks of pathology, of veterinary pathology here, and you compare with textbooks of human pathology regarding dermatofibrosarcoma, you will see exactly the same description. A tumor that never metastase, but which can increase to very huge volumes. So we had in mind indeed that a virus could be hidden behind this type of case, of clinical case. So we have done the RNA sequencing as a control on horses, and you can see here the expression of early genes of the bovine papillomavirus type 1 as expected. And we have done exactly the same thing on human cases, 8 independent cases, and the results were totally negative and sufficiently convincing to be published as negative because the negative predictive value was correct. This is an example of failure of NGS, and I share it with you nevertheless. Because I have spent 1 year on this topic and spent a lot of money. And we have taken advantage, in fact, of surveys that have been conducted in 2007 in France, looking for viral etiologies of encephalitis, following a quite comprehensive first-line testing. So you can see the first-line testing. At the end, around in half of the case, the result was negative. So we have taken 68 of this CSF, and we have deep sequenced this 68 CSF. And we have found one probable etiology, a Toscana virus, which is a well-known virus near the Mediterranean Sea, but it was already suspected based on antibody responses. We have found a probable contamination from the skin, meaning Merkel viruses and papillomavirus, which is very reassuring regarding the sensitivity of the technique and incapability to detect viruses trapped in the lumen of a needle, but nothing to do with encephalitis. We have found hepatitis C, nothing to do also with encephalitis, and this was background. So at the end, we did not find any interesting result using CSF. And this is one of the messages. You will see that when we have access to biopsy samples, the picture is really different. Just to show you animal samples, it's easier in animal cases because catalog of animal viruses is less complete than human viruses. And this was a case of a dog with a symptom of encephalitis in the context of enteritidis, and all was negative by conventional testing. And we quite easily detected a furid oncontics corresponding to a Calici virus, and more specifically a Vesi virus. And it was very close to a Vesi virus that had contaminated CHO cells in biotech facilities. And this virus is known now to be shed at high frequency in the stools of dogs. So it's an additional example of an enteric virus with neurotropic properties. And we are doing this kind of analysis based on CSF in a huge program which is named Southeast Asia Encephalitis. In this program, more than 800 encephalitiid cases of kids have been included from Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, and Myanmar. And first-line test and second-line test have been conducted, more than around 70 different targets, and at the end we had access to the CSF and did deep sequencing, and we have found some interesting viruses I cannot share today because it's submitted for publication. Regarding now progressive neurological disease, I will show you some example of actionable diagnostic first. Some cases which will show you both the range of detection, new viruses or unexpected viruses, and the analytical sensitivity. So the first case was a case of a 14-year-old boy with a severe encephalitis in a context of Bruton disease, or gamma globulinemia. He has been treated for epilepsy for 4 years. He was not able to read or to write anymore, so severe neurological disorders. So the CSF was taken and found negative for a range of neurotropic viruses you have here. Then the physician decided to do a brain biopsy, and the brain biopsy also was negative for the same viruses. So we had access to this brain biopsy. And the brain biopsy was astrovirus positive. So it was interesting because the astrovirus has been tested here. Don't see, but you can see. And here, yes, and the result was negative. So the treatment was adapted with more or less recovery or more slowly progressive clinical symptoms in this kid, for this kid. And you can see here the result corresponding to the mapping of the reads. So these are the reads we have identified on the closest viral genome. This is a PCR we have designed on this read, confirming that the virus was present and was not a contamination from the lab, for example. This is the explanation of the negative results of the PCR, because this virus, PA, like Paris, was distant from classical astroviruses, enteric astroviruses. And the interest of the story was also that this virus was not new. In fact, the same virus, or very close, has been published several years before, exactly in the case of encephalitis, exactly in a Bruton disease, but it was forgotten and not tested by PCR. And even if it has been tested by PCR, and we did this PCR using the primers described in the paper, the PCR was negative, meaning that the variability in the clade was so high that without NGS it would not have been possible to detect this virus. This was true at the time. Clearly now different sequences are available to design better PCR. And we have published, and the same year the same virus was published by 2 other different teams before us. This was another example of progressive encephalitis, a 16-year-old boy living in Guadeloupe, a Bruton disease, cognitive disorders in several years, muscle pain, walking abnormalities. The CSF was tested for these viruses and was found negative. A brain biopsy confirming the encephalitis was conducted, and the brain biopsy was also negative. and we did NGS, and we have found a dengue 2 virus, which was quite surprising because neurodengue is quite rare if it exists, and associated with the acute phase of the disease, in fact. Once again, the treatment was adapted, and indeed there was some difficulty to find a high titer immunoglobulin anti-dengue 2 virus. And this is to show you that these are our initial NGS read. So I don't remember, maybe it's written, it could be something like out of 70 million reads, and we got only a few reads. And these were confirmed by PCR, and this is PCR, and this was perfectly confirmed by PCR. So sometimes it's really the needle in the haystack. And here an example to show you the analytical sensitivity of the test. It was he was a 26-year-old man with Breton disease, with a history of meningitis associated with enterovirus. And the reason why the CSF was tested by PCR against enteroviruses, and the result was negative. So we had access to the CSF, this time it was a CSF, and we have found an echovirus type 4, and it was exactly on the same CSF, and in fact another sample of CSF taken 3 weeks later gave a positive result, showing that indeed it was a deficit of sensitivity of the PCR, which was an FDA cleared PCR on the market, and at the advantage of NGS. I can show you also a progressive neurological disease corresponding to a cohort of brain samples from a case of unknown origin, a cold case in fact, and it was a collaboration mainly with a neuropathologist at Hospital La Salpêtrière in Paris. And typically we have explored 16 brain samples, 14 from necropsy and 2 from brain biopsies. So the criteria were acute encephalitis based on histopathological examination, inflammatory lesion, not a Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, often immunosuppression, but not always. And I will show you some cases. So the first one was at the beginning a follicular lymphoma with a bone relapse, cervical myelitis, then in 2016 neurological aggravation, motor deficit, and intubation in November 2016. So we had access to a biopsy, and you can see here T cell opposition with a neuron. You can see the lymphoid infiltration. And once again, we have found a few reads corresponding here to astrovirus. We completed the genome by classical molecular tools, RACE and PCR. And this is now the phylogenetic tree based on the full genome. And you can see that once again, the virus was very close to the clade of neurotropic astrovirus, closer to the London virus than the previous one. The point which is interesting and the reason why I've chosen once again an example of astrovirus is that we had access to the CSF samples that have been taken 5 times along the story of the patient, and you have here the biopsy time, and in all cases by PCR the CSF was negative. So indeed, once again, it's not in favor of using CSF in this kind of progressive disease. This was a case of Breton disease with behavioral disorders, progressive deterioration, tetrapyramidal syndrome. It was sent by the National Surveillance Network of Creutzfeldt-Jakob. So it was suspected at the very beginning to be a Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. And you can see the perivascular infiltration, the astrogliosis. And what we have found here was a new virus, in fact, a 3-segmented RNA viruses. I will not go into details because it's submitted to publication, but this was a case of a totally new virus, in fact, in the Breton disease. And you can see the confirmation of the etiology the implications, the responsibility of the virus by using in situ hybridization, using a probe derived from the sequence, and you can see the labeling of the neuronal bodies on the axon. This one was quite surprising. It was a patient from Togo. The latest trip in Togo has been done 4 years before the beginning of the story, 4 years. He was in therapeutic rupture of HIV treatment, neurological worsening, ataxia, coma. And the brain biopsy, always the same kind of pictures, but very demonstrative regarding the encephalitis lesions. And we found a dengue virus, type 1, and contrarily to the previous case, we got a huge number of reads, more than 13,000 reads, so we got the full sequence of the genome, and you can see that the strain was very close to Côte d'Ivoire strains, meaning a country close to Togo, and meaning also that if the information is correct, the incubation lasted 4 years. This was also a curious case of long incubation. A patient coming in France for tourism. He has been bitten by a dog during a trip in Bangladesh. It was a traveler. He traveled also in Uganda, in Rwanda. He came in France in 2016. It began with pain in the lower limb and spontaneous and sweat, also profuse sweat, pyramidal motor deficiency, visual hallucination, hydrophobia, and encephalitic death. So diagnostic of rabies was indeed done using a skin sample. You know that diagnostic of rabies can be done from skin sample, and it was negative. And so the patient died for unknown origin, and we had access 1 year later to the brain sample with this kind of lesions. And we have found the rabies virus. And we have found the rabies virus and a strain very close to Bangladesh strain. So it was clear that it was a rabies case imported in Europe after 16 months of incubation. And it was totally, not totally unexpected, but it was at least not identified by classical diagnostic, and indeed, once the information is known, it's easier to make the diagnostic using immunochemistry. So in total, 4 cases out of 16 elucidated, 1 distant virus. So you have the summary here. I have to accelerate. So. And I want to give you some information regarding what we are doing in parallel regarding the broad range search for spillover events from wildlife, or this program is named Spillover. So the idea is to identify within wild animals or hematophagous arthropods, ticks and mosquitoes, viruses that could silently spread to contact human populations. So could silently spread meaning either because the clinical symptoms are discrete in situation where the immune population is very prevalent, but indeed this kind of viruses could be catastrophic if they spread in naive population, or maybe also could be responsible of severe disease in these countries, but without being diagnosed. So we have example from bats, lips, mosquitoes. So the idea here is to search viral communities of invectors and reservoirs using NGS. Do a selection. So at this step, we find a lot of viruses. Then doing a selection of viruses with zoonotic potential using a lot of phylogenetic analysis. And we have a streamlined pipelines. We do serosurvey in person in contact by expressing viral protein in fusion with luciferase, and we use this antigen in immunoprecipitation assay named LIPS, and we search also by PCR in febrile patients in close contact with this reservoir. So just to give you one idea of the kind of results we get, beginning with bat, So we have here explore a colony of Pteroptus, flying foxes, in Cambodia, in the north of Phnom Penh. They have been equipped with a GPS collar, meaning that we know exactly where the bat goes during the night to eat mangoes, and we have the population of the village in contact. Who accepted to give their serum, and we were able to test the corresponding serum. And we have found here a lot of viruses, indeed. And among these viruses, we have a list of viruses we explore. Among them, we have found an astrovirus here, which is near to the clade of neurotropic astroviruses. So what we do is to explore the sera using the corresponding antigens. We have found some sera with slightly positive results, which need indeed confirmation by seroneutralization. This means that we can start from a catalog of viruses to focus on viruses that could be of interest for deeper analysis. And this is an example from ticks that have been collected in Thailand, in fact. And once again, a lot of viruses. Among these viruses, a new Togotovirus. Togotovirus are a member of the Orthomyxoviridae family, which is well known because it had been responsible of a severe disease, severe illness in the US, the Bourbon virus. And in fact, phylogenetic analysis show us that our virus was very close to the Bourbon virus. So once again, we derived antigens from the whole glycoprotein or from subparts of the glycoprotein, and we have found negative results. So at least this virus does not circulate actively, and we have now the regions to do a targeted follow-up. And lastly, we have this program, which is named BioLao, which is conducted in Laos. We are trapping, our colleagues are trapping mosquitoes in a human-bait double net, so as to capture anthropophilic mosquitoes. And we have recently sequenced more than 1,000 mosquitoes, and we have this kind of results, a lot of hits to explore and to try to find viruses able to cross the species barrier. So to summarize, I have also to publicize, to inform you on the fact that we have established a strong partnership and collaboration between our laboratory here, Laboratory of Pathogen Discovery at Institut Pasteur, and the Laboratory of Microbiology of Hospital Necker to improve clinical management of patients, so by using clinical metagenomics in routine diagnostic, in particular in immunocompromised patients, and regarding our side to do new pathogen discovery, being able to evaluate imputability of new findings and do follow-up studies. So in conclusion, untargeted next-gen sequencing is combined high analytical sensitivity and wide range of detection. The analytical sensitivity is in the range of PCR. Taxonomic assignation is often done to the species and even type. I did not show that for the viruses. In chronic infection of unknown etiology, often uncover pathogens in lesional tissues. Interpretation should be made by microbiologists, and agnostic analysis of animal and human interface could help to find the viruses of tomorrow. And I would like to thank indeed people of my lab, and more specifically Philippe Perrault, Sarah Teman, postdoc in the lab, and Thomas Bigot, which is a young bioinformatician working with us, our colleague from La Salpêtrière, our colleague from Hospital Necker, and all clinicians from many hospitals, mainly in Paris, who are indeed key in this sort of studies. Thank you for your attention, and there is 1 minute left for questions. Thank you.